Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be flying the Tero Q215. This is GearBest's answer to the Tero 99, which is Banggood's $99 race drone. Now this one costs a little bit more. I think at the making of this video it's $114 or about £88, and I was getting a lot of questions on the Tero build, and I've also done a build video on this one already, so I'll link to that in the below. And of course the question is, which one is better? And in my opinion it is definitely this one. However, there are a few buts, and I'll talk about those throughout this video. But why do I think it's better? Well, first of all, the frame is much easier to put together, and I think the parts and the components are a slightly better quality. So with the Tero here, we've got all of these screws here, and those just dig into the battery when you put your strap around it, and all of the screws are different lengths, so you're given just one bag of screws and you have to sort them all out, and it's a bit like building a Meccano set or something like that. This one, we've got recessed screws, we've got a silicone mat to stop your battery from slipping. All of the arms are asymmetrical, so you don't have to worry about which way that they go on, and it was just quicker to build. We've got these 2206 2600 kV motors that we've seen before on the Fury B X215. That's a very popular bind and fly from GearBest. And the motors, they are just alright. I have some questions over the kV numbers, but yeah, in general they are a decent motor, and you could switch that out. So we have got other things on this as well. So the VTX is built into the flight controller, and it's got smart audio. With this one, the VTX doesn't even have enough room in the frame, so it's just strapped on the top there, so a lot of people didn't like that. This one is a little bit heavier, so 320 grams against about 306 to 309 grams, so it is lighter. And then we've got this micro camera at the front against this larger camera, and it's better protected. However, I do have a question mark over this because the listing shows it as a CCD camera with a 2.1mm lens, which it does say 2.1mm there, but it also then says CMOS after that as well. But yeah, anyways, we've got this micro camera, and I do like the plug and play aspect of it. We've also got a micro SD card slot on there for black box. I don't think the Tero has got that, and we've got an LED board on the back as well, and a huge buzzer. So this one, I don't think it has got a buzzer, so you have to do D-shot commands with this one. The battery strap is a little bit flimsy, I have to say. I would probably replace that out. And now, if you saw my build video, you will notice that I put the flight controller straight on these nylon standoffs, and then when I was setting it up, I got the throttle going, and at around about half throttle I started getting what I would call mid-throttle yaw oscillations, and they're usually caused by vibrations from the motor. So it might be that the motor isn't balanced very well, or the bearing isn't that great in the motor, and the vibration reaches down the arm. And especially in a frame like this where we've got a screw that goes through the arm, but it's also supporting the stack as well, it's very easy for vibrations to reach the flight controller. So there are a couple of things to try. The first thing I tried was to use soft mounts. These are these little Ishin soft mounts. I think it came with one of the Wizards there, and I put this on. Now the stock screws sadly aren't quite long enough to go through the soft mount, so I was having a few of them falling off. You've got a couple of threads on there, but really you need to replace all of the screws. However, that didn't completely fix the problem. It did help it a little bit, but I was still getting the jitters. What did completely fix it was putting some soft mounts on the flight controller. These are from Diatone, I think, and then I throttled up with the props off when I was setting it up, and the yaw oscillations were gone. So a little bit of work there to get those out of the way, and I'm sure it would still fly, you know, but you'll get jitters, I think, when you are on mid-throttle. So, you know, these modifications are worth doing, but then you start to eat into, you know, that cheaper budget. However, I will say, if you build a top-end quadcopter or spend more money on it, you could still run into these problems, you know, so it's worth mentioning that. Something else that you could probably do with this one is top mount the battery. We've got a huge section here where the battery could sit on the top. Myself, I have bottom mounted it because, you know, you could stick a camera on the top of there like a GoPro eventually or something like that. So that would be my favorite option. So next I'm going to take you through my Betaflight setup. Now, to be fair, this was set up pretty nicely out of the box, but I've just tweaked a couple of things and this is flying really nice now, so I think it might be worth it for you to have a gander at what my settings are. Okay, so here we are in the Betaflight configurator. You get it from the GitHub website. I've got expert mode enabled here, so if we go into the ports, now it already had the serial RX selected under UART 1. Now this is something I should mention because it's a difference between the Tero and the Tero. So with the Tero, the UART 1 is just for S-Bus, so you couldn't put a DSMX or, say, an iBus receiver up to it. However, I do think there's a spare UART, so if you've got an uninverted receiver, such as the DSMX or the iBus, then I think you could solder that up, but it wouldn't be plug and play like it is with the Tero 99, so that's worth mentioning. The UART 3 is taken up with smart audio, so you can see that's already selected as well. So let's go into the configuration. It was already set as D-Shot. I've changed the motor idle to 6% because it was a little bit low. I'm running 8K here. I think they had it a little bit lower. I haven't changed the personalization, that was the same. All of this was the same here as well. Now, it didn't have dynamic filters on. I didn't think it had anti-gravity, but it did have air mode on, I think. But anyways, this is how I've got it set, and LED strip here as well. I haven't got any of the beacons set up because we've got a buzzer, so that is fine. Let's go into power and battery. I did have to change this here, so I just lower the warning cell voltage so that it's not beeping when I hit the top of the throttle when the battery sags. I also put the maximum cell voltage to 4.6 if I ever want to use a high volt, but I rarely do. You want to check that the failsafe works, but I didn't change anything here. You know, just set your transmitter to no pulses and just do a test. So turn the transmitter off after you've armed it and the motor should stop. PID tuning, now I've left their PIDs and they seem to work quite nicely. I've just used my rates here, so I've just changed that and I haven't touched anything else down there. So if we go into receiver, so I've changed the channel map to TAER. I've got my RSSI on AUX4, I think that was just disabled. I put some RC deadband there just so that I've got a smooth stick around the center, and that's everything in there. Then modes, I did have to change, I think, so I've got my arming on AUX1, then I've got angle mode in here, and then over here acro and air, and I've got beeper down here as well. They put this one in OSD disable, but I didn't set up an AUX7, so yeah, you can switch the OSD off if you want. I don't know why you would want to do that. Nothing in adjustments here. Motors, of course, I did have to test, so make sure all of your props are off, and then you can plug your battery in, tick this thing. Now, all of the motors were reversed. I think I mentioned it in the build video, so I'll link to the build video in the below for this one. But yeah, you want your motors going this way here, so you can just touch them. You can have them all going at the same time if you like, and then just tap them and see which way they are going, or you can individually move them. And I had to reverse every single one of them, and I'll show you how to do that in BL Heli Suite. So LED strips, so it had that set up there as well. Just trying to think if there's anything else I changed. Yeah, I changed the arming to 180. So this is a safety feature. It's set at 25 out of the box, and that is just in case you're carrying the copter with the battery connected and then you accidentally hit the arm switch and it doesn't cut you up with the props. It does have a downside though. If you are more than 25 degrees on an angle when you try to take off, then it won't arm. So if you are stuck in a tree, then you can't arm it to wiggle it out. So I always take that risk and put it up to 180. So next, I'm going to go into the on-screen display. So yeah, it was actually set up quite nicely, actually. All this was already there. All I did was I turned off artificial horizon, I think, and I think I had sidebars on there as well. So on-screen display set up pretty nicely. So it's come with Betaflight version 3.4, target OBSD there. So now I'll just show you how to go into BL Suite to change the motor direction. So we need to disconnect from Betaflight because it's going to be using the same port here. So you're going to need the non-32-bit version because these are not 32-bit ESCs. And the battery is plugged in still, so I'm going to press connect and then read the setup. And as you can see, when you solder everything direct, like I did, every single one has to be reversed. So then you want to do right setup, and that is everything for my setup. Alrighty, let's get made in this guy. The weather is still pretty windy. So these are the stock props. I think they're the same props that were on the other Fury B models, and I kind of got fed up of them. Let's see what the punch is like. Not bad at all. I mean, if these motors are genuinely 2600 kV, then, you know, with these props on, should be a real performer. See those LEDs on the back already programmed like that. Let's see if I can see any jitters or anything like that on the hover. Not seeing anything. Of course, this is with the soft mount. Does the power loop nicely. Oh man, the wind is pushing a lot today. I tell you what though, line of sight, this is superb. So just a question now really on what is the performance of that camera, because that was really the weak point of the Tero, and it'd mean that you'd have to spend a fair amount more just to getting that to work. And there's the whole thing about when you switch the camera on the Tero, it gave problems with the on-screen display. So if we don't have to switch the camera, I would pay the extra $14. In fact, I'd pay the extra $14 because it's got the smart audio, and it's just in general a nicer build experience. And these motors have got more time on them. You know, they've been on a lot of bind and fly, ready to fly copters. They're not perfect, but they do the job. And this is going fine line of sight, I have to say. We have got plenty of punch. Let's have a listen at the sound, how loud it is. Not too loud. These are fairly high-pitched prop, these are though. I'd probably switch the props out to my favourite freestyle prop, probably a Dell Cyclone, you know, the 5046 or something like that. But yeah, this is what you're supposed to do line of sight, isn't it? Mess with the throttle quite a lot. I just like to dance about myself. Nothing quick, my eyes can't follow it if it's too quick. And I love these loops. Send me videos of your power loops. Line of sight though, none of that FPV business. Right, well, this is definitely past the maiden. I'm just going to flick him back into angle mode, see if we've got any drift. That's the wind blowing it, can you see? That's what I have to check. So I explain this every time, but when you've got a noisy copter throughout the flight, it will make the gyro drift, and it's just the wind that's pushing this one in that direction. So no drift is good news. So now we just have to see how it performs FPV. Okay, so let's take a look at some DVR footage, and straight away I'm seeing some noise filtering through from the ESCs, and the camera is looking pretty dull. Now, I was flying this at dusk, so the sun was setting, but let's see how fast this thing goes. So I've got my speed meter out here, so full throttle. So we're getting 79 mile per hour. Now with a 50-48 prop and 2600 kV motors, I would expect more 90 mile per hour. So that's why I sort of have a question around the kV of these motors. But yeah, maybe it's the props, you know. I'm not too keen on these props. But anyways, let's go back to the camera. Now, first of all, I thought, well, yeah, it's pretty dull, isn't it? But, you know, the sun is going down, so maybe it's just because of that. However, if this was a genuine CCD camera, even when the sun starts to set, you usually can't tell through the goggles. So I would say that this is a pretty poor quality CMOS camera. And, you know, just like with the Tero, I would again take it for what it is. I think the field of view is much wider than the Tero 99, so again I think this one is better. But yeah, it's not doing too great at the light handling, and I did do a flight in the daytime just to make sure that that was the case, and it was still a pretty dull picture, but flyable. I will say though, getting quite a lot of noise coming through to the picture, so yeah, not enough capacitors. Maybe it even needs a bigger capacitor on there to filter out some of this noise, or maybe just, you know, for the price, the ESC isn't a good enough quality to not have any noise. That being said, it was flyable, and you know, you get what you pay for, I guess, you know. And just like I said with the Tero 99, just class it as a basher quad. You're gonna crash it anyways. I think this is nicer than the Tero 99, but it does have its flaws. You know, we've got those mid-yaw oscillations which you have to fix with some dampening, you know, so it's not a perfect product, but then again, I'm not sure we should expect it to be for this lower price. And if you want that, then, you know, you're gonna have to spend more money, and, you know, I think that is my conclusion. So I'm just doing some maneuvers here just to test out the tune. The tune was okay. It could do with just a little bit of work, I think. There's a little bit of bounce back going on there, but in general it felt like a pretty smooth flyer. So yeah, I think, you know, this would be good if you want to practice line of sight and a bit of FPV, but you are going to get a bit of noise coming through to it. And even though the parts and the you know, quality seems better, actually the end result isn't that much different than the Tero, other than you get in a slightly wider field of view and you've got the smart audio. So I think it's worth buying into for that, you know. And I think this one's got just a little bit more power as well with those higher kV motors, and this one was set up better in Betaflight as well, if that helps you. But yeah, there are pros and cons to both of them, and hopefully I covered that in this video, so I will leave it there. Yeah, I think the flight time, yeah, not too bad actually. This was a 4S 1500 milliamp Tattoo battery, and over a 4-minute flight time. In fact, I think coming up to a 5-minute flight time. So yeah, that's not bad. I think that's because, you know, this one is lighter, and you do get a good flight time with the Tero because you've got those bi-blades, but you don't have as much power as you get with these ones, you know. So you've got that to take into consideration as well. The Tero, you know, with everything that you get loads of props with that one. With this one you just get 2 sets, but I still think I prefer this one for the easier build and, you know, the wider field of view on the camera. But yeah, there you go. So I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.